Good morning, everybody. Today is Wednesday, October 5th, 2016. And this is Before the First Cup with Jules here on UCY.TV. Happy Wednesday, everyone. It is 62 degrees and partly sunny and pleasant here in upstate New York. So where do we leave off yesterday? We titled the show AI, DARPA, Ubiquitous Autonomy, and the Internet of Everything. And we spent a lot of time looking at some of these insane DARPA projects where they have been utilizing not only artificial intelligence, but they've been building in the ability to now reason, to now be able to take A, B, C, and D, and then the new conditions of E and F potentially, and build scenarios on how they would react in the case of such an emergency. You know, one of the stories we looked at about provisioning wireless infrastructure, whether it be 802.11 or cell phone or CubeSat, terahertz, or 5G, whatever the new flavor of connectivity will be in the future, they were crying about how the FCC had to license the different spectrums and how difficult it is, because if you owned a spectrum, if you licensed it for, I don't even know, I'm sure it's a huge chunk of change that people pay. No, actually, not even people, large corporations pay to license a spectrum. They develop wireless products right to that spectrum that is guaranteed to them, but DARPA is crying because the federal government, may potentially want to use some of these future bandwidths or other big hungry tech corporations, and you little puny human, you say that we can't use it because you bought a license for it. We're not allowed to interfere with your bandwidth. So our solution is going to be something that I never even thought of in my wildest, craziest engineering dreams, and that would be autonomous provisioning of bandwidth across all forms of spectrum. And how insane is that this could be on-the-fly, cloud-esque computing technology for the wireless spectrum. And we're not only talking wireless as in frequencies, but remember, it also moves into the optical frequency. Those Wi-Fi are going to be pretty crazy. We got all the laser stuff as well. I found out, actually, I'm pretty excited and sad at the same time. Libby Haleve's Nuclear Hot Seat for this coming Saturday, she got like a bombshell exclusive interview with a dude that talked to her about some stuff that he's been working on and some first-handed knowledge about some of the things that they are working on in space right now, and space weapons. And when she sent it to me, she dropped me a little note just about how devastating this information was. And I really want to hear it because, we've been looking at the launching of these CubeSats, these little mini 10 by 10 by 10 centimeter satellites that'll be the last mile for connecting all devices to the Internet of Everything. And some of these devices will be equipped with things such as terahertz, millimeter wave. We found out with that terahertz and the millimeter wave that not only is it like the magic X-ray goggles where you could see through fog and see through clothes and see through ceilings and be able, with your atomic molecular millimeter wave scanner, be able to tell at an atomic level what I have for breakfast on my lip when I go to the airport. But this same technology out of Los Alamos National Laboratory in 2009, they'd come out with that paper that had talked about how that same technology could potentially unzip DNA. You want to talk about a horrifying weapon? So anyway, she sent that to me late last night. That is going to be queued up for Saturday at 2 p.m. Eastern, Nuclear Hot Seat with Libby Halevy. Make sure you catch it. I'm going to see if I can catch it maybe tonight while I'm getting it ready to air. And maybe we can talk about it But I have a feeling that we're going to find out some horrible new technology that they are working on. And once they put it in space, like Von Braun always said, we're done for. You cannot put weapons in space and hope to ever be free again, especially when they can pinpoint you at the drop of a pin. And speaking of DARPA and shape-shifting and artificial intelligence and autonomy, ubiquitous autonomy at that, and the Internet of Everything, yesterday I had another issue connecting. I mean, this is really a big pain in the ass lately. Since I don't touch anything, I go upstairs in the afternoon, and I usually don't come back out here until the next morning, and nothing gets touched, and just all the shit breaks while I'm sleeping, apparently, unattended. It's just crazy how that happens. But I had to edit about, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 minutes out of dead air yesterday morning, where I didn't realize that Skype was not broadcasting. And at the end of the archive, so for those of you who heard it on the replay at 5 p.m. Eastern or did it on YouTube, you probably heard this clip. I edited out, it was about a 15-minute podcast, and I think I cut it down to about 3 minutes or so, just for the very beginning part to kind of set the stage. What I wanted to start with today, and again, that's looking at DARPA, but that's some of the shape-shifting matter. Now remember, we started talking about that, maybe 2-3 weeks ago, and then it kind of got hauled off into another direction, looking at frequencies and stuff, and so we kind of left it sitting on the table. But I really wanted to get back there, and I thought after what we discussed yesterday with the autonomous everything, and all these different self-thinking, self-healing, self-aware, soon-to-be, reasoning artificial intelligences that not only DARPA, but companies such as Toyota and others with the self-driving car technology. We got these new social home robots. Remember Big Eye? Big Eye. He looks like a big garbage can with a big eyeball in the middle. You know, they want to get them all fuzzy and in your home between you and your kids to read them bedtime stories and take care of them, babysit while you're gone. It's insane. So what I think we're going to do is, let's see if, hopefully I'm broadcasting now. I think so, because you guys would all be complaining in chat. Let's see if I can connect this desktop, because I even got it queued up from the archive last night. I think I'm connected. And we're going to listen to, I got to find his name here. There we go, Voices from DARPA. This is their very first podcast. I saw this in my feed the other day, and I was like, no way, DARPA has a podcast. Maybe they want to come on UCY. Probably not. But sadly, the podcast is only 14 minutes and 20 seconds total. But it's on their YouTube page, DARPA TV, all one word, no dot, just like UCY TV. But this is an interview with one of their program managers named Tyler McQuaid. He sounds pretty green. He sounds very smart. But he sounds young. He definitely doesn't sound like he knows what he's doing. He sounds like I did when I first got involved in technology, because it was something that was unexplored. And you know, he even made a comment, and I don't think I had that cut in here, but he made a comment about how he always wanted to go be an explorer, and so did I. I wanted to be an Indiana Jones. You know, when I was in college, I really was planning on getting my English degree and then getting an archaeology degree and studying world religions, and then go across the world finding artifacts. And as I was working through college, I thought to myself, well, you know, what left is there to find? We dug around all the pyramids. Hell, there's nothing left. Stupid me. And I gotta say, this kid said the same thing. He wanted to be an explorer, but everything's been explored. But now he's turned his sights to the tiny universes that exist within the atom and exist within matter and in nature. And he is a molecule man. That is what he spends his time doing. So this premiere episode, Voices from DARPA, we're going to hear Program Manager Tyler McQuaid, who works at DARPA's Defense Sciences Office, revealing his vision of accelerating scientists' ability to discover and make a vast variety of new molecules for what? Oh, yes, military, medical, and other applications. And guys, this is a lot of this shape-shifting crap we've been talking about from DARPA, except this dude is one of the dudes that is helping develop it. And again, I gotta tell you, he does not sound like he's got an evil bone in him. I mean, I'm just judging by his voice patterns, but I'm not getting that creepy vibe out of him at all. I'm getting somebody who, like me, is driven by keeping your mind very, very active. I get bored easily, so I gotta jump on the stuff that makes my brain work hard. When my brain works hard, I stay out of trouble. And I have the knowledge after the fact to put the money where my mouth is when I try to justify some potential assertion that I've been trying to make. So, I don't hold it against him at all. He's been given a huge opportunity. DARPA is a massive, massive institution with unlimited. Remember when Kurzweil got hired by Google? He's kind of bridging that Google-DARPA gap with the whole brain initiative and AI and being able to decode unformatted text. When Kurzweil first took over as the head of engineering over there for their AI project, he said that he had near an unlimited budget. Well, that's why, because they were opening the coffers, saying, whatever it takes, man, it's a moonshot project. You got a year. You got 2 years. Spend, but we need results. And, when someone does that, I'll tell you, it's a dangling carrot. You're putting your wondrous aspirations ahead of thinking about the consequences, and it's really easy to do. Just what's happened in this world with technology. There were so many of us that sold humanity. Not intentionally at all. I wasn't planning on selling my future children to the machine. But that's what we've done. This is where this is going. And it's not even going to be some evil human sitting at the top in the end. And remember what happens. All in the name of Columbus Day coming up here on Monday. What happens when a more advanced race comes into contact with a less advanced race? Oh, yes. They kill them, slaughter them, and enslave them. That's what's going to happen. This technology is getting to the point now where they've given them the ability to reason. And like I said yesterday, there were some big names, Stephen Hawking, Elon Musk, Wozniak, even Billy Gates. So I think Bill Gates just did it for a photo op. He's like, oh, some big names there. I better get on the bandwagon so I don't look like the big evil nasty and say we shouldn't pursue artificial intelligence. We put a kill switch on it or whatever. But guys, they didn't listen to all those scientists. There was a huge number that all inked that paper that said, hey, we're some smart cookies out here and we should not be unleashing the demon, as Elon Musk said. I think those are going to be our 2 topics today, by the way, is DARPA, shape-shifting, space travel, and Elon Musk. All right, so before I babble anymore, since I wasted half the show with dead air already, let's take a look at what this he's a molecular biologist. I think that's what he said. He dealt with organic chemistry, which I have a really good friend who's got lots and lots of degrees in that, and is involved in mapping out the chemicals of anything that's brought to him to patent it. So pretty interesting. But let's listen to this young, zealous program manager at DARPA about some of the new things that they are working on.
You go from having something that can form life to something that explodes, to something that makes beautiful colors, to something that makes your cookies smell great and taste great. It's all chemistry.
You're a molecules guy.
Yeah.
There actually are not that many molecules people here at DARPA, which is interesting. So as a rep of this minority, how are you taking that interest in the form of programs?
In the Defense Sciences Office, one of the things that's going on right now, one of the zeitgeists, is revolutionizing science. How do we do science but faster, better? And one of the things that is interesting about chemistry, especially when we're talking about the makers, the people who make materials, make small molecules, make medicines, it's a really slow process. I really like the idea of reinventing science, and in chemistry there's a lot of opportunity to reinvent the science.
So let me ask, when you say reinventing science, I mean, do you mean the actual process, the way we're asking questions, the way we're trying to answer those questions? And if so, can you be a little more detailed about what you have in mind?
Chemistry is a tough subject. We have lots of parameters that we don't often know how we're controlling them. But if we did all of the chemistry in a much more controlled environment, where the environment was being constantly monitored, we might come up with much, much more reproducible chemistry, which will then mean it can be transportable. So in other words, if I have a machine that's doing the chemical reaction, recording how it's done, then that code, that record, can be sent from one lab to another. So you could accelerate it in the same way that the internet allowed you to accelerate how information was transportable. What if you could do that with molecules?
Dang. What if you could do that with molecules? And what gave me the chills hearing that interview yesterday morning was that it's just like we've been talking about with cloud computing and Baxter and being able to exponentially increase this technology across the globe in an instant. He said if we had a lab and we were able to determine the ingredients and scan it and feed it into a machine, and then they put it into the cloud, and it's just like the internet, because, and remember, we're talking about molecular level here. We're talking about Eric Drexler type stuff, molecular machines, being able to do desktop manufacturing. That's what this is. But this is at an organic level. This is to be able to create matter from nothing, to be able to create matter from molecules on the fly and build them. Now wait, of course this is all going to be in the name of medicine, and that's what he talks about later, is this new protein engineering and whatever. But guys, this is going to spin out to the full-blown replicator. And I mean, of course it'll be sold for our benefit. Oh, push a button, get rid of scarcity. You can make anything you want out of your desktop 3D printer at home that's internet connected. But guys, this is not a good thing. This is not a good thing at all, because it means that they have then enslaved all matter on this planet. Not only have they enslaved all matter, but how long is it going to be? They're already talking about creating all new synthetic molecules as they mimic nature and steal the wonders. How long is it going to be before we're seeing weird, crazy new things? Things that we never dreamed of, even in our wildest nightmares. I don't think it'll be too long.
Tyler, this might be a good time to talk a little bit about the Make It program. So can you say a little bit about what you're doing there?
Make It?
Make It. This is their new program.
It is a platform technology for making small molecules. And in this particular case, what we're trying to do is we're trying to democratize chemistry. So what if you could have a system that a biologist or any scientist came up and typed in the target, and the machine figured out how to make it, even if there was no recipe available, so that the machine would figure out a possible set of ways to make something, and then would go about testing each one of those ways until it found a solution. Then it would log that solution in a cloud or in its data bank, and now that molecule could be made any time. And in addition, the system would also figure out how to make more of it.
So there you go. And he even said, the key ding word, let's democratize chemistry. How has that worked out so far for CRISPR? We had that add a gene, democratize CRISPR, send it out across the globe, so anyone and everyone has their hands on it now and splice and dice DNA like it's a Ginsu knife. And then we have the head of the intelligence agency coming out going, oh shit, It's now become a weapon of mass destruction. So how's that going to work out for you, DARPA? Now democratizing chemistry. So we are able to scan a substance, upload it to the cloud, figure out how to make it, and then reproduce it endlessly. You know, my friend does X-ray crystallography, and that's pretty much what they do. You'll have a company comes in, or a researcher, that brings their new synthetic or custom molecule that they want to patent into the lab. And they say, hey, we really need to get a snapshot to be able to put our patent on here. And he does this thing with this big box that he sprays x-rays into. I don't know. I never actually asked how it works, but I know you're not supposed to stand next to the thing. I've been in there a couple times in the lab. You're not supposed to stand next to it because it's got x-rays. But it scans the molecule, and it maps it, and it determines what and you know, I was wondering too, now that I think about it, I mean, molecular scanners, like terahertz, millimeter wave, I wonder if he knows about those. I'd be getting rid of my x-rays. But whatever they do this thing where they can scan the molecule and be able to see the entire output of what it's made out of and how the bonds are all connected and what type of bonds they are. So then they could give a representation, 3D drawing or whatever, and send it into the patent office to patent their new molecules. I mean, that's already happening. But this is taking it one step further. This is being able to identify molecules and complex molecules that are put together with other molecules to make things, figure out what's in it, and then reproduce it on the fly. Saving it up to the cloud so anybody, just anybody with the technical know-how and expertise, maybe even not, maybe some little hacker in the desert somewhere in mommy's back bedroom, would be able to then reproduce the matter out of the raw materials that they determined. It's very frightening, people. Like I said, disruptive technologies are everywhere. This is going to be a disruptive technology that I don't think there's ever coming back from. You know, there have been a bunch of stories about DARPA with their shape-shifting capabilities. And I wanted to talk about a few of them. This podcast really floored me, actually. And it just came out about a week ago. And this Make It program that he is discussing, it's the first time I'd ever heard of it, and I did a couple searches. Make It is a pretty generic term, and trying to find that in a search engine is difficult, but I couldn't find any real information on it as related to DARPA. But if you just go down Google and you search shape-shifting DARPA in a Google search, I'm just going to read you a couple headlines here. Programmable matter shape-shifting microbots get it together. DARPA wants shape-shifting vaccines. We've talked about that a whole bunch of times. They're doing it, people. They're doing it. It's a form of gene therapy that'll be able to go in and just like this autonomous new anti-intrusion, anti-hacking, anti-viral, whatever they're building for the Internet of Everything, you know, to keep you safe, to be able to be the sentry and respond and repair or quarantine invaders before you even know that it's happening. They're going to do the same thing with our immune system. A couple more headlines. What is a shape-shifting chembot? These are these new liquid robots. DOD seeks builder for shape-shifting military robot. Oh, yay. DARPA's building real flying transformers. That's out of Gizmodo. Is China copying DARPA's shape-shifting mayhem weapon? You know, I mentioned that as well the other day. How now they're finding out that DARPA has become something that foreign actors, such as Russia and China, are emulating. They want to be just like DARPA. They want to have a mad science military division, and they're working on it. Guys, none of this is going to turn out well for the human race in any way, shape, or form. DARPA's Programmable Matter Project creates shape-shifting materials. Now, this is out of 2009. From tools that morph themselves structurally to suit the job at hand, to sentry bots, ding, ding. And this isn't for the internet. This is just for patrolling a perimeter. Sentry bots that can change shape to squeeze through narrow passageways. Yeah, leave it to DARPA. Programmable matter is such a far-out concept that it is difficult to imagine it even exists outside of the movies. Well, gee, how many times have I said that? It's like my worst nightmares that I never even dreamed of come true. But thanks to some creative work done by scientists funded by DARPA, it might actually become a reality. They can create materials that can be programmed to alter themselves at the molecular level into various shapes and then disassemble to form entirely new ones. I mean, does the Terminator movie mean anything to you? Because that's what I think of when I think of assembly and disassembly. I mean, when they blasted all through that sucker, it just blew up, self-healing. And we have some self-healing materials coming. You know, they've been messing with that with nano. And I don't know what kind of nano, whether it's, I have no idea. I don't even know what molecule they're messing with. But in some of the nanotechnology, they're working with the self-healing for doing body work for cars. So not only if you get a dent, we'll be able to fix the dent immediately, but they're messing with the ability for it to like change the paint color on the fly. Woo. What, you don't like your black car anymore? It's 110 degrees here in the desert. Well, let's change the color to a black or to a white car for the summer. I learned my lesson the hard way with that hottest summer ever in Buffalo, and I bought myself a black car, and I was so cheap, I refused to get air conditioning because, hey, any car I ever had never had air conditioning. Why would I need it? Well, I'll tell you why, because it was the hottest summer ever. And in a black car with no air conditioning, you're gonna die. But, you know, they already are working on this. And remember, this story's from 2009, so a lot of this probably has already come to pass. Imagine a universal tool that can morph to perform the specific job needed. Imagine vehicles and clothes that can automatically change shape, perhaps even at the molecular level, according to terrain and climate. And you know, that was something else. That whole clothing thing was something that I am pretty certain was part of that ATAP program that Regina Duggan was a part of at Google. Because not only had she started with these morphing communication devices that could be swapped, mixed, and matched with all these other little pieces that could be plugged into it, but she was working on wearables, wearable computing, smart clothing, tokens that you swallowed, or little happy tattoos that you could wear on your skin in pretty little colors and shapes that might even piss off a teenager's parents to be her authentication token. She was into a lot of that stuff, and I would not doubt that part of some of that collaboration that they were doing with Levi's and trying to wire in antennas, because remember, they can 3D print antennas and anything now, that there was not some sort of level of molecular manipulation that was being tinkered with there. Signal magazine has a new report as of 2009 on the Programmable Matter Initiative, spanning a group of projects working toward the final goal of creating substances that can morph into objects as needed. One Harvard team, and this is what scares me because I've been covering this for about 5 years now. One Harvard team has created self-folding origami, and you know when that came out, when they were messing around with those Robo-Bees at Harvard, and they were building those little mini Robo-Bees by hand, it was really complicated, so they had to come up with a manufacturing process. And that manufacturing process was this new super mini origami manufacturing with self-folding little bots that could fold themselves into shapes. and they can even change shapes. And again, like I said, this is 2009. We are at the very end of 2016, people. This has come a very long way. And don't forget also that Harvard complete Sharpie black line to the Broad Institute and good old Georgie Porgy Church. Mr. Synthetic Biology himself creating a synthetic human genome. 150 scientists all meeting in secret to be able to decide for you and for me, this is a project that humanity should embark upon. Yes, that same Harvard University, all connected to the Broad Institute. And we had a story about 2 weeks ago about some new DARPA molecular manufacturing grant that the Broad Institute had received from DARPA. So put on a seatbelt. This is not science fiction. This is reality. It is happening in labs all across the globe. It just hasn't made the headline news. And guess what? Mainstream is not going to talk about the potential horrors that could come from this technology. They're only going to tell you how wonderful it is, that you will no longer have to pay for a body shop guy to pop out the dents after the teenage kid took the car and backed into a post at the grocery store. Whoops. You know, and again, think about all the jobs that is going to take. We talked a lot about that yesterday, robots taking all the jobs, and it always sounds like a joke, but it's not. And we're not literally always talking about robots. We're talking about smart technology. Whether it's anthropomorphized in the shape of a robot that looks humanoid-esque, or even if it looks like a garbage can sitting in the middle of your living room named Big Eye, and it can talk to you and be all social, tell your kids bedtime stories, or if it's just these little molecular machines that have been programmed that can self-fold and create things at a molecular level at the push of a button. All these things are going to disrupt the economy and going to disrupt everything we know on how the world works today. This is going to be like we went from caveman times to good old George Jetson's world, except we don't have a frame of reference around us. Science fiction has really kind of helped prime the pump for people's minds. Star Trek 40th anniversary was just last month or the month before. Star Trek really has fueled a lot of new technologies. Kids my age who grew up watching Star Trek then became engineers, technical people, and started to create devices such as the cell phone and things of that nature. And the replicator is the next one. I'm telling you, that's what this is. That's what this new molecular engineering is going to be. It is going to be the future of the replicator. But that path has kind of been laid out for us. This is kind of where everybody's following, and they're looking to this grand and wondrous future where everything is going to be not only ubiquitous, but plentiful, because we become gods of our own environment. We can manipulate matter at the wiggle of a nose in the future. And be able, I could even see, all you have to do is think about it, bling, and it appears. They already got brain controlled, all kinds of stuff. How long is it going to take before they just have brain controlled, connect you up to your little implants, see the vision in your mind, and be able to think about how you want to manifest it? And here it comes. Almost would seem like magic to someone who didn't understand the science. Anyway, so beyond this Harvard team, other teams have approached the problem by mimicking DNA or protein synthesis in the creation of objects, and the projects are only in their second stages of development, ending sometime next spring. So that was in 2010. But by that time, they are hoping to have a working model that can assemble into a few different solids. Once some of these ideas are realized or integrated into working form, the possibilities are almost endless, blurring the line between materials and mechanics. It may even result in new, never before seen states of matter. Ding, ding. Yeah, just what we need. You know, just like when we were looking at some of this CRISPRing, and they created 2 never before seen amino acids that they've been able now to not only add to the double helix, but get it to reproduce. To create, of course, all these new drugs that might help us. We got all these new permutations that we can create now with this X and Y protein that doesn't exist anywhere in the universe, they said. All life is ATCG, at least that we're aware of. But now they have ATCG and designer synthetic proteins, X and Y, to be able to assemble life in organic matter in ways that we never even imagined. Blurring the lines between materials and mechanics. It may even result in new states of matter, and one possibility are these info liquids or info solids, materials that straddle a line between solid and liquid with information encoded into its chemistry. Another possibility is the creation of robots that can shift sizes and even states of matter to squeeze through narrow passages and around obstacles. Wired also points out theorizing models that can mimic shapes in real time similar to holograms. This could allow a replica of yourself to exist and move as you do somewhere on the other side of the world. That would be the skin jobs, guys. You know, once you get destroyed, you can just be recreated, download Nana at Christmas time. You know, we talked about this, and it's not insane, people. You know, another thing I was thinking about when they were talking about straddling that line between solid and liquid, you know, we're also looking at a whole nother revolution, and that would be straddling that line between electronic and organic. Right? They have a programming language now, fast forward 7 or 8 years from the time the story was written. And we now have the ability to program cells as if they were a computer application. There's an entire programming language. And they've been able to build electronics. You're just reading about this new organic brain implant back a few months ago that's literally made out of DNA and then programmed to do stuff. This one really caught my attention, and this was from just a month or so back, August 12th, 2016. It has been sitting open on this desktop as a tab since that day for me to get to it, and we're finally going to get to it today. DARPA wants to build homes out of living biological material. Ding! You know, I'm looking at all this stuff now. One of the things that we found way back when, we might actually hit this tomorrow. I think finally I might get to the space stuff tomorrow and our moonshot for Mars that's coming. But one of the things that DARPA had talked about a long time ago was us going to Mars and being able to terraform the planet utilizing synthetic biology. They want to be able to engineer organisms to terraform Mars. And, you know, when we go to Mars, there's going to be a lot of raw materials. There's going to be a lot of molecules. There's going to be a lot of elements up there that are very ubiquitous throughout the solar system and the universe, the raw building blocks of everything we know there. But it's going to be very difficult for us to cart things like houses or cars or ATVs. You know, of course, all sealed because we won't be able to breathe there either. We won't be able to cart all kinds of equipment over there. So we're going to have to build equipment. Building equipment out of raw materials, such as molecular and elemental material, is very difficult and something humans haven't quite mastered yet. Well, I have a feeling that is a whole bunch of what some of this shape-shifting material and molecular machines and building something out of nothing is all about. DARPA wants to build homes out of living biological materials. Yes, your house might be alive at some point in the future. A military research body in the U.S. government, more affectionately known as DARPA, is promoting the seemingly insane idea of building homes out of living materials that grow and replenish themselves. The U.S. government's Defense Advanced Research Project Agency is pouring money into the unique idea that it could revolutionize the work of engineers and architects. Again, really high-paid people with lots of experience that you pay for to make sure you get it done right, who are gonna be out of jobs. I mean, we keep seeing this almost every single show, guys. There's gonna be a world of unemployed people here that are no longer needed. All kinds of useless eaters. Maybe if they give us a universal basic income and a replicator in our little smart cities that are all monitored by the post office. We found that yesterday. We might be able to save Earth, but I doubt it. I doubt that they're going to let us just all sit around and be pretty, as there's nothing left for us to do or to add to the GDP. DARPA is responsible for developing emerging technologies for military applications and has launched a program exploring the use of, quote, living biological materials such as bone, skin, bark, and coral to construct next generation homes. Oh my God, bone and skin. And I'd be all right with maybe bark or coral, but bone and skin. Researchers at DARPA believe that the Engineered Living Material Program, more affectionately known as ELM, could produce homes that were much more cost-effective and self-sufficient. Consider the benefits to be gained from a chimney that heals after damage, and a roof that breathes to control airflow, surfaces that don't flake or fade, and a driveway that eats oil to clean up after spills, says the company. It's all about harnessing what's known as engineered biology to create smarter infrastructure that responds to its surroundings. If you remember, back a year or two ago, DARPA had announced that they had established their new biological technology office, the BTO, and it was all about mixing machines with organic material. This is beyond frightening, guys. This is creating the monster that will be the full-blown transhumanists. I don't even know what we would call it. A home made out of skin and bone that can maybe think and feel and live. It's a living organism. Like, this is sick. But it's all in the name of convenience. You don't have to fix anything. Don't worry about it. You don't have to clean the driveway or fix the siding. No. Well, it'll take care of it for you. The vision of the Engineered Living Material Program is to grow materials on demand where they are needed, says the program manager, Justin Gallivan. Imagine that instead of shipping finished materials, we can ship the precursors, like the building blocks, and rapidly grow them on site using local resources. And since these materials will be alive, they will be able to respond to changes in their environment and heal themselves in response to damage. It is a novel idea, but there's one institution that can make it work, and it would be DARPA. Australian neurologist Dr. Tom Oxley has been a beneficiary of DARPA's willingness to create projects where they give him his first $1 million to create a brain-machine interface. So lucky us. He's gotten some of that DARPA dollars. He says, I don't think anybody in the world would have funded it. And it was something so blue sky and out there. That's what they call those moonshots. But that's what DARPA is famous for, pushing the envelope. So while grown materials are nothing new, But the company points out that most are rendered inert during the manufacturing process, but DARPA believes that it can use emerging sophistication of 3D printing, ding, 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 to produce hybrid living materials made out of traditional non-living scaffold and materials printed out of living cells. And the long-term objective of this program is to develop an ability to engineer structural properties directly into the genomes, big ding, of biological systems, so that neither scaffold nor external development cues are needed for an organism to realize the desired shape and properties required. And if it turns out to be a winning idea, maybe one day your home will be made using materials intertwined with living fungi, skin, and bone. Guys, what an absolute insane story that is. So here, this is where we're going to leave it for today. DARPA, we are engineering the organisms that will terraform Mars. We're going to take off to space tomorrow. It is no secret that DARPA is investing heavily in genetic engineering and synthetic biology, and whether or not that excites or terrifies you depends on how you feel about the military engineering totally new life forms. If you're in the excitement camp, however, here's a nugget for you. DARPA believes it is on its way to creating organisms capable of terraforming Mars into a planet that looks more like Earth. And let's add to that, creating living structures that'll be able to respond to its environment and be built by materials that are available in the environment. All right, guys, well, make sure that you stick around because it is Wednesday. We have Mrs. Alani Clark live up next. And Wednesday night is all kinds of live radio at 6 p.m. Eastern. We have Josh with the Anti-Tyranny News at 8. The boys from New York, the new boys from New York with Spam at 9. We have this week's Truth on the Tracks, 10, Cutting Through the Matrix with Alan Watt. And at 11, the Anti-Media Radio with Nick Burnaby and D.B. Schwartz. So it should be a good one. All right, guys. Well, make sure you have an awesome Wednesday. And I will catch up with you tomorrow. Everybody, take care. Oh, I've been singing. There we go. So my microphone that I don't touch, that's plugged in here every day and it's sitting on a boom. Yeah, that microphone just decided that wasn't going to send audio, and both Skypes, both my Skype on my desktop and the Skype on the server, didn't have any red call bars like they do when your sound's not going through. Nope, just sat there all pretty and white like, hey, everything is A-okay, Jewel Wink. Just keep talking and going off on what you're going off on. So there is no show. All right, I guess I'm going to have to cut this one all up, and it's going to be another pain in my ass day, but let's start this sucker over. All right, everybody. Good morning. I don't know. How's the show start? All right. All right, good morning, everybody. Today is Wednesday, October 5th, 2016, and this is Before the First Cup with Jules here on UCY.TV.
TED Talks are recorded live at the TED Conference and partner events. This episode features architect and designer Neri Oxman.
Two twin domes, two radically opposed design cultures. One is made of thousands of steel parts, the other of a single silk thread. One is synthetic, the other organic. One is imposed on the environment, the other creates it. One is designed for nature, the other is designed by her. Michelangelo said that when he looked at raw marble, he saw a figure struggling to be free. The chisel was Michelangelo's only tool. But living things are not chiseled. They grow. And in our smallest units of life, our cells, we carry all the information that's required for every other cell to function and to replicate. Tools also have consequences. At least since the Industrial Revolution, the world of design has been dominated by the rigors of manufacturing and mass production. Assembly lines have dictated a world made of parts, framing the imagination of designers and architects who have been trained to think about their objects as assemblies of discrete parts with distinct functions. But you don't find homogeneous material assemblies in nature. Take the human skin, for example. Our facial skins are thin, with large pores. Our back skins are thicker, with small pores. One acts mainly as filter, the other mainly as barrier, and yet it's the same skin, no parts, no assemblies. It's a system that gradually varies its functionality by varying elasticity. So here, this is a split screen to represent my split worldview, the split personality of every designer and architect operating today between the chisel and the gene, between machine and organism, between assembly and growth, between Henry Ford and Charles Darwin. These two worldviews, my left brain and right brain, analysis and synthesis, will play out on the two screens behind me. My work at its simplest level is about uniting these two worldviews, moving away from assembly and closer into growth. You're probably asking yourselves, why now? Why was this not possible 10 or even 5 years ago? We live in a very special time in history, a rare time. A time when the confluence of four fields is giving designers access to tools we've never had access to before. These fields are computational design, allowing us to design complex forms with simple code. Additive manufacturing, letting us produce parts by adding material rather than carving it out. Materials engineering, which lets us design behavior of materials in high resolution. And synthetic biology, enabling us to design new biological functionality by editing DNA. And at the intersection of these four fields, my team and I create. Please meet the minds and hands of my students. We design objects and products and structures and tools across scales, from the large scale, like this robotic arm with an 80-foot diameter reach with a vehicular base that will one day soon print entire buildings, to nanoscale graphics made entirely of genetically engineered microorganisms that glow in the dark. Here we've reimagined the mashrabiyah, an archetype of ancient Arabic architecture, and created a screen where every aperture is uniquely sized to shape the form of light and heat moving through it. In our next project, we explore the possibility of creating a cape and skirt. This was for Paris Fashion Show with Iris van Herpen. Like a second skin that are made of a single part, stiff at the contours, flexible around the waist. Together with my long-term 3D printing collaborator, Stratasys, we 3D printed this cape and skirt with no seams between the cells, and I'll show more objects like it. The designers have access to such high-resolution analytic and synthetic tools, enables us to design products that fit not only the shape of our bodies, but also the physiological makeup of our tissues. Next, we designed an acoustic chair, a chair that would be at once structural, comfortable, and would also absorb sound. Its surface, as in nature, varies its functionality not by adding another material or another assembly, but by continuously and delicately varying material property. But is nature ideal? Are there no parts in nature? I wasn't raised in a religious Jewish home, but when I was young, my grandmother used to tell me stories from the Hebrew Bible, and one of them stuck with me and came to define much of what I care about. As she recounts, on the third day of creation, God commands the earth to grow a fruit-bearing fruit tree. For this first fruit tree, there was to be no differentiation between trunk, branches, leaves, and fruit. The whole tree was a fruit. Instead, the land grew trees that have bark and stems and flowers. The land created a world made of parts. I often ask myself, what would design be like if objects were made of a single part? Would we return to a better stage of creation? So we looked for that biblical material, that fruit-bearing fruit tree kind of material, and we found it. The second most abundant biopolymer on the planet is called chitin, and some 100 million tons of it are produced every year by organisms such as shrimps, crabs, scorpions, and butterflies. We thought if we could tune its properties, we could generate structures that are multifunctional out of a single part. So that's what we did. We called Legal Seafood. We ordered a bunch of shrimp shells. We grinded them and we produced chitosan paste. By varying chemical concentrations, we were able to achieve a wide array of properties, from dark, stiff, and opaque to light, soft, and transparent. In order to print these structures in large scale, we built a robotically controlled extrusion system with multiple nozzles. The robot would vary material properties on the fly and create these 12 feet long structures made of a single material, 100% recyclable. When the parts are ready, they're left to dry and find a form naturally upon contact with air. So why are we still designing with plastics? The air bubbles that were a byproduct of the printing process were used to contain photosynthetic microorganisms that first appeared on our planet 3.5 billion years ago, as we learned yesterday. Together with our collaborators at Harvard and MIT, we embedded bacteria that were genetically engineered to rapidly capture carbon from the atmosphere and convert it into sugar. For the first time, we were able to generate structures that would seamlessly transition from beam to mesh, and if scaled even larger, to windows. A fruit-bearing fruit tree. Working with an ancient material, one of the first life forms on the planet, plenty of water, and a little bit of synthetic biology, we were able to transform a structure made of shrimp shells into an architecture that behaves like a tree.